will you marry me?
Lois and Clark get married tonight on ATV.
I'm sorry, Francis, but I don't go for this crap one bit. We earned it and we want to keep it.
Tonight, growing concern and protest over proposed changes to unemployment insurance.
We want some movement, or we're not moving.
Planning strategy. Fishermen get set to go head-to-head with the fisheries minister.
You know, people have to treat this river with a great deal of respect.
And yet another snowmobile fatality and another warning about thin ice.
Now, from the #1 news team in Atlantic, Canada, the ATV Evening News.
Evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan Gravener.
And I'm Janice Landry. Thanks for joining us tonight. Another day and more protests in our region, and once again the federal government has come under attack on two fronts.
First up, we open up in southwest Nova Scotia, where today 300 fishermen met behind closed doors to plot their new strategy in their fight over licensing fees. ATV's Dan McClellan has more.
Try to keep some order to what's going to take place here.
This gymnasium at the local community college was the scene of a major strategy session by local fishermen. Following close on the heels of yesterday's rally in Barrington Passage, fishermen are now trying to determine what to do next.
We called this meeting to try to get all the organizations together and see what direction they want to go in. I guess everybody knows we're facing a pretty serious situation here.
In that mood of desperation, the 5 fishermen occupying the DFO office in Barrington Passage have now barricaded themselves in, allowing no one access to the building. Fishermen say it will stay that way until federal fisheries minister Fred Mifflin hears their demands.
It was made very clear yesterday that Mr. Mifflin is going to have to deal with this himself, or the gentleman that's in the Barrington office are definitely not going to leave.
The fishermen are protesting a number of issues. The one causing perhaps the most rancor among them is the proposed increase in inshore lobster licenses from the current $30 a year to just under $1,900. They also want DFO to recognize inshore handline operators as full-time fishermen. Some say it is time to take a defiant stand against Ottawa, if only to protect their livelihood.
They feel the government is holding us hostage. The government has to react to some of these things. They're doing nothing there in that building. We're the ones being held hostage, these communities and these fishermen. And we want the government to know that we want some movement, or we're not moving.
As these fishermen plot their move, there seems to be a sense of urgency among them, especially in light of the possibility that DFO may try to remove the 5 protesters from the Barrington Passage office.
I presume there is a court injunction issued now, but they're staying there, and if they have to go to jail, they'll go. They will be peaceful, but I think there's going to be some movement coming here within the next 24 hours.
Someone said that this is going to be a hard job.
Regardless of what comes out of today's meeting, one thing seems clear, and that is the ongoing battle between fishermen and the DFO is by no means over yet. In Yarmouth, Dan McClellan, ATV News.
And in other news this weekend, residents of the community of Goodwood and the surrounding areas are very upset over plans for a new regional landfill. About 20 people held a peaceful protest near the site of the proposed new landfill, which would serve the Halifax metropolitan area. They handed out leaflets to passing motorists. Many wore gas masks, alluding to recent statements that the Goodwood area has higher than acceptable levels of uranium and radon, and landfilling would cause them to leak into the water system. The mayor of Halifax has already called for an environmental assessment.
We'll have more on protests in our region in a moment, but first, charges are pending against a 32-year-old man who was involved in a chase last night with Halifax police. Police tried to stop a car on North Park Street when it sped away last night. A chase started and the vehicle lost control near the corner of Roby and Livingston Streets. The car flipped over, hit a house, and caught on fire as the male driver was thrown from the car. He received injuries to his legs and arms, and police say he may have some internal injuries. Both the house and the car were heavily damaged. Police have not said what charges the man is now facing.
2 Halifax women are claiming the police used excessive force and damaged an apartment during an arrest last night in the Spryfield area of the city. The women say about 11 last night, members of the Halifax Police Department broke down the door into their home on Lemon Walk. Police were armed with an arrest and search warrant. They were looking for a man. Police confirm a man was arrested and will be arraigned tomorrow on break-and-enter charges. The search warrant was misdated for February 11th and stated the police were looking for a 44 or 45 caliber handgun. None was found at the scene. Meanwhile, the homeowner where the arrest took place and the girlfriend say police used excessive force during the arrest.
Where at? We didn't hear that. Well, if it was dated for the 11th, it's not the 11th, and if
I thought I was being murdered. I thought they were here to kill us. They were scary.
Why am I so upset? I'm a single mom. The damage that was done to my house, I can't replace this stuff. Kept holding the gun to my dog. I mean,
Melvin admits a musket and switchblade were found at the scene. She says they are hers. The girlfriend also claims police didn't announce who they were when they broke down the door. Police spokesperson would only say it's common practice for police to identify themselves in case of injury.
Terrible tragedy this weekend in Newfoundland. 3 people have died after going through the ice in a pond in the southeastern part of the province. Police say the 3 were all on an Argo, a large all-terrain vehicle. It apparently fell through a pond on the Avalon Peninsula. The bodies of 1 male and 2 females have been recovered. RCMP are not releasing names until families have been notified.
Meanwhile, in New Brunswick, a second snowmobile accident in as many days has claimed another life in that province. Police have yet to release the identity of a man who drowned overnight in the Mactaquac Head Pond. The victim, believed to be from the Zealand area, was driving one of 3 snowmobiles that suddenly ran into open water. ATV's Mike Cameron has the story.
Competition among ports is...
The RCMP dive team was on the scene this morning to search for the victim's body. The accident occurred near a causeway which goes across the head pond. A strong current keeps the water here from freezing, and police say in the dark the snowmobilers may not have seen the open water.
At times they're at that particular speed and whatnot, you may not even know whether you'd be on ice or water there for a few seconds. It'd be too late when you realized it.
Just offshore there is over 20 feet of water. 2 of the men had to struggle to reach land.
But they were able to get out. They come over to the road and flagged the car down and went to get help.
Police divers finished their work shortly before noon.
This was the second fatal snowmobile accident of the weekend. Another man was killed Friday night near Allardville in northern New Brunswick when his snowmobile tumbled into a river.
Snowmobilers on the ice today insisted the head pond is safe for recreation.
Right here, right now, there's probably over a foot of ice. They drilled holes in it last weekend and they were drilling down a foot and they weren't hitting no water, so there's probably lots of ice here.
You gotta go where it's safe, along the shore.
They say it's a matter of avoiding 2 places in particular, near the dam and near the causeway.
But the head pond is a very dangerous location, and you know, people have to treat this river with a great deal of respect, because with the power dam, with the flows, the water level can rise and fall as much as 10 feet, and so it can make ice conditions very dangerous.
Chief Coburn says this is the first time in many years that the Keswick Ridge Fire Department has had to respond to a call of this nature. Despite the sometimes precarious condition of the ice, there have been relatively few serious accidents in the Mactaquac Head Pond.
Thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome.
And of course, if you are venturing out onto the ice, please check with the police department before you do so. Jonathan.
Well, the Coast Guard is now considering a plan to break off the Atlantic region from the rest of eastern Canada when it sets fees for navigational aids. For weeks, shippers, stevedores, port officials, and politicians in this region have been pressuring the Coast Guard to come up with a rate that doesn't result in maritime ports subsidizing inland ports like Montreal. But Coast Guard Commissioner John Thomas will not give maritimers the formula that they're demanding. Rick Grant has more.
Competition among ports is so fierce that in 1991, about a half a dozen shipping lines pulled out of Halifax to get better rail, labor, or port rates in places like New York or Montreal.
An agreement has been reached between the province and Canadian National to bring double-stack rail service to the port of Halifax.
After Nova Scotians invested millions of dollars in double-stack trains and labor made concessions, business began to trickle back to Halifax, but the port never fully recovered. Then Coast Guard recently unveiled a fee plan to recover some of its costs for navigational aids like lights and buoys from the commercial shipping lines that depend on them. It was expected that the charges wouldn't have too great an effect on the competitiveness of Atlantic ports like Halifax and Canso Strait, where ships need only 30 to 50 kilometers of aids. But Coast Guard's January fee formula would result in this region subsidizing inland ports like Montreal and Thunder Bay because ships need hundreds and thousands of kilometers more aids to get there than to Atlantic ports.
We have to fight for what we've got here.
Shippers from St. John, Halifax, and Canso Strait demanded that Coast Guard Commissioner John Thomas base a new rate on the distance a ship travels using aids.
I'd say it's highly unlikely.
But Coast Guard Commissioner John Thomas says he will consider separating the Atlantic region from the rest of eastern Canada that includes the St. Lawrence River and Great Lakes.
There's a reasonable likelihood. St. John is supportive of that.
Did you hear what you want to hear?
Not really.
Fritz King of Atlantic Container Lines wrote Transportation Minister Fred Mifflin that ACL may leave Halifax if mileage is ignored. Paul Chrisman says Statia Terminals may close down its Point Tupper petroleum operation at the Strait of Canso.
They're moving in the right direction. They're doing some listening, but we're far from being there.
Nova Scotia shippers and stevedores are still frustrated with the commissioner. They say he has not moved far enough. Atlantic shippers have the support of West Coast ports and this BC Member of Parliament.
You have to base your user fee on the services that you're actually providing.
Halifax and Canso Strait have volunteered to take over navigational aids from Coast Guard.
How realistic is that?
Not very realistic.
Thomas says that when he sets rates for navigational aids for the Atlantic region, he will be taking into consideration future ice-breaking costs for ports like Montreal, even though Halifax and the Strait are ice-free. In Halifax, Rick Grant, ATV News.
There's been another protest this weekend, this one in Port Hawkesbury, where 250 people met with a local MP to attack possible changes to unemployment insurance. New legislation will make it tougher for seasonal workers to collect UIC. Part of the package will see workers having to work longer and to collect less.
Hold the other one up, please, sir, could you? So I support the government's thrust in reforming the UI system that is embodied in the EI legislation. That doesn't mean that this legislation can't be improved. Without any shadow of doubt, I am one of those people that think that this bill should be scrapped. I think what has to happen is we've never been, as a labor movement, been opposed to review, but as a saying's concerned that you hear quite a bit in this region, is you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what we're doing is completely taking the UI system, the basic principles intended for, and turning it upside down and inside out.
Those attending today's rally told the MP they want legislation totally scrapped, saying it's not good enough to amend certain sections. LeBlanc says he will bring their concerns straight to Ottawa.
Well, another day of more snow and mixed weather.
Kind of slippery driving out there, I've heard, too.
The man to blame and the man with the shovel to clean off your sidewalks and your driveway is Phil McLaughlin. He's got our first fast look at the weather. Phil?
Shovels and rain boots. Yes, fleeting sunshine started the day across the Maritimes today, but the clouds did quickly fill up the skies. Now we're seeing snow, freezing rain, and rain sweeping across the region. Let's pull up the satellite imagery, and there you can see the little pesky system moving across the area. That'll quickly get out as well, and in behind, another shot of cold Arctic air will come down for this upcoming week. And this upcoming week, of course, is Valentine's Day week. And when I'm back on the half hour here on ATV, your best weather channel will tell you just how cold it's going to be this upcoming week. And also, I'll explain the expression, the three-dog cold night. We'll talk all about it later. See you guys.
Thanks, Phil. We can't wait for that one. And still ahead tonight, the latest national and international news for you.
But up next is the big night in the maritime music industry. The East Coast Music Awards are being handed out tonight. We'll take you live to Charlottetown after this short break.
Awash in dirty water, many cities are running out of fresh water supplies. Portland city officials are warning people to cut back drastically or face boiling water by the end of the weekend. In Tillamook, some farms still appear like islands. In Oregon City, the river is so high, Oregon Falls don't fall very far. Some use the raging waters for play, and even for those facing losses, there can be a bright side.
Oh, we'll have to tell Brett and Ashley that their tricycles made it.
Well, we're just going to clean up, and it's...
We love the river. We're not leaving. This is the spot to be. We don't care, you know.
For others, their dreams have been washed away forever. Rusty Dornan, CNN, Tualatin, Oregon.
Amazing.
Those pictures are amazing.
Amazing that people would actually go through that and then continue to stay there. Well, we don't have floodwaters here, but we do have some rain. Phil now with a look at our weather.
Yes, Jonathan, and seeing that video certainly puts it all into perspective. That system that gave the rain out west and the melting snow as well is now going through the Maritimes. So a little bit of rain, freezing rain, I guess we can't complain. Now, the three-dog night expression I've used quite a few times this winter with the cold outbreaks of Arctic airs. Well, it's a cold night expression that's used. Now, legend has it originated in the Canadian North, but the denizens of the Australian outback, they lay claim to it as well. And what it simply means is, on a cool night, you could have one dog in bed to keep you warm. Maybe a chilly night, you bring in two dogs. But on a cold night, the coldest night coming along, you would have a three-dog night. And that is the coldest. And the U.S. rock trio group took their name from the expression three-dog night. And some great music there back in the late 60s. And my thanks to cameraman Jim Cook for bringing in his three-dog night music to supplement my little graphic. So today's jet stream, upper ridge to the south of the Maritimes is allowing the mild air to get in, and we're seeing that across Nova Scotia, getting into the plus numbers now. But back more to the Great Lakes at central continent, and this trough here of cold air, that's another shot of Arctic air coming down. That'll be in place going into this upcoming week. But back to the west, an upper high amplitude ridge into the prairies, all the way up into the Yukon as well. +1 at Whitehorse, 11 at Victoria, and in Calgary they're at 9, so very, very mild off to the west. Putting it all into motion, here's the imagery going along, and the system that came along across the Great Lakes over the past 24 hours, now going across the Maritimes. And again, that's the system that plagued the Northwest and the Oregon area, bringing the heavy rains early in the week, and now we have it right in our backyard. Here it is now tonight, this evening, going through the Bay of Fundy. Now in the warm sector portion across Nova Scotia, temperatures will be climbing overnight tonight, an abnormal temperature trend, getting on the plus side, the rain changing over to, or the snow changing over to rain, a risk of freezing rain there as well, we'll talk about later. To the north, snow, so a messy mix, I guess, in a nutshell, for tonight's weather across the Maritimes as that system tracks along. And my prognostic chart for the day tomorrow, the low will boot right along and get up to the coast of Labrador and the Labrador Sea, cold front well out to Newfoundland, but a strong, not strong, brisk northwest to west flow. A lot of moisture around, a lot of snow flurries for tomorrow, but back behind me, here it comes. The Arctic high pressure cell ridge will be off to our west. That'll start to feed in the Arctic air, and another shot of cold air going into this week of February. So cold week coming along through this week for Valentine's Day itself. -10, -8, a few flurries around, maybe a few sunny breaks, but the emphasis on the Arctic air coming along. So putting the local view into motion. One system got out yesterday. Here's that next system, of course, that came along from the Great Lakes Basin we talked about last night, and now just marching across the Maritimes, filling up our skies today with a cloud and bringing us the snow package and some rain in the south. And as I say, there is a band of freezing rain across the southern Maritimes, or central Maritimes right now as we speak this evening. So forecast-wise overnight tonight then, precipitation right across the three provinces. Snow changing to rain in the southern Maritimes. To the north into New Brunswick, solid precipitation. Snow 5 to 10 centimeters up that way. Into the south with the rain 5 to 15 millimeters. Now for freezing rain, right now St. John's reporting freezing rain. Halifax International Airport has some freezing rain a little while ago as well. In the valley today, Annapolis Valley, some freezing rain. So that'll be right into the eastern Nova Scotia, and let's say along the southern part of New Brunswick, Kings County, Prince Edward Island, Cape Breton Island, a risk of freezing rain overnight tonight. If you're heading out in the highways, take it easy. There are the overnight lows. Climbing in the south, falling in the north. So an unusual temperature trend, of course, but it happens every now and then. For tomorrow, the warm front getting, or the cold front getting out, in behind, the winds picking up from the northwest to west, maybe to the southwest down in the southern part of the Maritimes. There are the daytime highs. Now actually in the southern Maritimes, they'll be around the freezing mark at daybreak, but falling through the day. There you can see the numbers. Maybe some sunny breaks to the west later in the day. Don't expect too much sun, though, across the Maritimes tomorrow. So tonight, a messy mix out there precipitation-wise, and a risk of freezing rain in the central Maritimes. I'll be back later. Janice?
Thank you very much, my friend.
I always thought a three-dog night was when you're really hungry at a hockey game and you had 3 dogs.
Or more if it's you. Still to come tonight. Some hot uniforms in the NHL and gearing up for another NASCAR season.
Also, the NBA All-Star game goes tonight. Plus, some NHL action on today and a shocker from the world of boxing. We have all the sports and more coming up in a couple of minutes.